So thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Agnes Warner. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at CreditorWatch. So I'll be your host for today, and with me I have George Wolf, who's our Head of Solutions Specialists, and probably a familiar face for those of you who have joined our webinars in the past. Hi, George.
Hey, Agnes, how you going?
Good, thanks. So just hoping you can give us a bit of a background, an introduction of what you do at CreditorWatch, and yeah, just what we're talking about today.
Yeah, sure. I manage a team of product specialists. They're client facing, and they're there to help customers uncover specific needs and challenges that they're having in their business relating to their credit management processes and policies. So today is really topical for us as a team because it's what we talk about every day, and we really want to share with you some key things that we can do to help you moving forward. So yeah, today we're talking about the full end-to-end credit management process. I'm going to give you some hints and tips around what best practice could look like. It is individual based on your individual businesses, but there are some guidelines that we can help you with, as well as talking about some of the challenges that we're seeing customers face on our day-to-day interactions. So yeah, that's the high-level summary of today.
Awesome, thanks, George. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with CreditorWatch just yet, we're a leading commercial credit bureau and technology company specializing in commercial credit risk solutions. We take enormous pride in taking care of our customers and making sure that we're enabling them with the best tools and solutions to just simply get on with business and trade confidently. So we did start off as a commercial credit bureau about 13 years ago, and since then we've rapidly expanded our offering to help trade credit providers like yourselves on this webinar today to better manage their credit risk throughout the entire customer credit life cycle. So whether it be onboarding new customers quickly or trying to keep up to date with your customers' changing risk levels throughout the relationship, or trying to maximize cash flow by automating collections and just having that system in place. Our CreditorWatch software, data, and insight solutions help businesses like you manage credit risk in an efficient and structured way. And then ultimately, we try to help you protect and grow your business at whatever phase of your business life cycle is. Okay, so I know I've talked a lot about CreditorWatch and what our products do at a high level. George, you have a lot more background on, our journey of starting off as a credit bureau and only offering credit reports, really, to expanding our offering to all these different solutions across the customer lifecycle. Can you just give us a bit of insight why we've done that?
Yeah, sure. And look, historically, credit reports and alerts have really been the mainstay of CreditorWatch. They're popular with customers because they offer great value, and for many businesses, it's the first time they've been able to justifiably implement some form of credit management systems. So yeah, they're extremely popular and widespread. Whilst they are great tools and they give great insights to customers who give great insights for new customers you're trading with, the challenge is that they're not automated at all, and they don't establish a process within your business. So what you effectively have to do is manually look at a credit report and decide what to do with that information, or receive a monitor via an email and decide what to do with that information. And it's the challenge that we're trying to solve by adding additional products to the product mix is to give you guys some process so that the tools are working for you, whether you're engaged with them directly or not. So great data coupled with great software gives you process and automation so that the system's working 24/7. So I think what, a couple of great examples of that is, if your collections process, you can talk to all customers at all times based on their overdues, and they're not waiting for you to chase them down manually. Or your onboarding application can give you a recommendation and based on certain criteria that you've set. So you don't have to go and look at that and decide manually how to process that. It will also then file and store that application for future reference automatically to remove those manual touch points. Does that give you a bit of a high level, Agnes?
Yeah, that was very in-depth. Thank you for that. So just conscious of time, and we do want to get into the topic for today. So I think we've given away pretty clear what we're talking about today. So it's all about managing credit risk throughout the customer life cycle. But for those who aren't entirely familiar or hasn't clicked yet, I just wanted to go through what trade credit is, or what trade credit providers are. So trade credit providers are basically any business who supplies goods or services and allows for payment to occur after the fact. So for example, if a business were to provide cleaning services, they will invoice the customer after the service has been done, or if a customer has ordered a ton of bricks, just as an example, that brick manufacturer or wholesaler will invoice the customer after the fact and allows them to pay whatever credit terms they've provided, so 7, 30, 60 days, whatever it is. Yeah, so if a business is delivering goods or services and asking for payment after the fact, then that business provides trade credit. And I know some of you are thinking, you know, that's probably risky. How do you know that customer's going to be able to pay? Are they going to pay even if they can? Or you know, just because someone can pay, they don't necessarily will pay. So that's what we're talking about today. How do you make sure that, you know, they can and will pay? So getting into that, George, you've briefly talked about, you know, the process of you know, trade credit already, but I wanted to go through what an actual typical credit management process looks like for a trade credit provider. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so I'll just talk about the three key ones, which we've labelled as onboarding. So your initial interaction with the customer, account management, so your ongoing relationship with that customer, and receivables. So how do you collect that customer, whether it's ongoing collections or whether it's end of relationship type collections. So typically in the onboarding space, we predominantly see PDF or Word documents being used, which the customer generally goes to your website and downloads or fills in an online basic PDF form. So there's a couple of the challenges there which are constant. It relies heavily on what I call print, sign, scan. So the customer has to print that, complete it, and scan it back to send it to you. It's really slow and it's prone to errors. The two most common ones are incorrect ABNs or ACNs, and a lack of appreciation around things like trusts and the fact that you need the trustee details as well. The other thing that's common is that customers often change or don't complete the T's and C's, often crossing out sections that they don't feel are applicable to them or don't want to apply to them. And then the added frustration for the customer is if a mistake is made, the credit team generally push them a refreshed form, which means they then have to print, sign, scan again. So these things are completely outdated and add a lot of tension to the process. Customers have an expectation around using modern tech now, and often that manual process will see them go to another supplier pretty quickly unless you're an absolute mandatory supplier of theirs. So it's a terrible experience for them. And the other thing we see is quite a lot of tension between the credit team and the sales team, or those who are in charge of revenue, who are trying to make sure they get those dollars through the door initially. So that's a very high level summary of onboarding. Monitoring is pretty simple. Businesses generally only check a new customer for credit when they onboard them, and quite often they don't run a credit check. They might even find that doing an ABR search and that customer being registered is sufficient. Things we often hear with customers when we talk to them about monitoring is, we don't need to monitor them, we've got a great relationship, we've always been paid in the past, or I don't want to upset clients. But the fact is, if you're not keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening with your client base, you won't know if something's changed, and ultimately you might be running into something that causes a loss, or you might be missing an opportunity to have a great conversation with your customer and provide them early assistance till they get out of trouble, if that's what's happening.
And so, the last thing is to find out that your customer has gone into liquidation or administration on the news, right? And you go, oh, hey, they still owe us like $10,000.
Yeah, and that's right. And if you do find yourself in that situation, and sometimes it's unavoidable, we're not going to say that we can prevent losses in all instances, but you do want to be on the front foot if that does happen. So being aware is critical, so you can act quickly and mitigate as effectively as possible. With collections, what we see nearly all the time is that businesses prioritise the collection of debt based on the size of the debt and how overdue they are. So quite often you'll have risky debts of small amounts that are just being ignored because they're smaller. And ultimately those small amounts can add up to a significant impact on your cash flow, which is not necessary if you can jump on them quickly and automate it. Internally, collections is often a huge process issue for businesses. It is a cost, it's an operational cost to the business, and one which hasn't been overly invested in many businesses. So things like using multiple systems, Excel, Outlook, the phone sporadically, and then not having a central location where to document things or conversations with customers. Quite often, other than the cash flow issues, clients get frustrated because, one, they might be having multiple conversations and that conversation stored in multiple places. So they do get irritated about that. But the second thing is some debtors quite like the fact that you have a disorganized collection system, because they will naturally just delay or defer payment to you. And that's a truth that we see happening quite often. And putting in place something to automate that can really improve that process.
Yeah, not getting paid on time can be detrimental to a business, right? If you are constantly getting paid late by a lot of your customers, that might prevent you from having enough capital to be able to order as many goods that you need to. Maybe you'll even have issues meeting payroll. There's a whole bunch of issues there, so it's really important to get cash in the bank in a timely manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Cash is king, and that phrase has been around forever.
Yeah, and at CreditorWatch, we've also found that smaller businesses are the first to not get paid when a business is starting to struggle. So they'll pay the essentials like utilities providers, like energy, electricity, phone bills, internet. They'll keep the lights on. And then for those vendors that they can get away with not paying, like those who aren't constantly chasing for payments, they're the ones that are last to get paid, and therefore they're the first who suffers. So it's really important for those little guys who make up 80–90% of the Australian business population to actually get ahead and be in the front foot to make sure that they are getting paid on time.
Yeah, and Agnes, as you say, the squeaker wheel gets the oil. So if payment is being received late, either from one customer or multiple customers, it's important to have a process in order to communicate with them effectively and in a timely manner to ensure that they know that you are looking to get paid, and have tools at your disposal to leverage if payment is not forthcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. And just back on your point on onboarding earlier, filling out PDF application forms and having to print and scan back, that's so tedious. I think a lot of people would avoid doing that now. So I can definitely understand if a customer were to go through that process and then run away to a competitor who has the digital processes and doesn't require you to go to Officeworks to find a printer and scanner. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the challenges of what we've typically seen from our customers, but I want to get an idea from the audience about what their challenges are. So for those of you watching today, what's your biggest challenge when it comes to managing credit risk? Is it conducting due diligence before onboarding customers? Is it making it quick and easy for customers to sign up with you? Or keeping up with customer changes as their relationship progresses? Or is it getting paid on time efficiently and chasing overdue invoices? We'll give everyone maybe about 10 seconds more to fill out the answers. Cool. All right, awesome. Let's have a look at the answers. Yeah, so I did think that this was going to be the biggest answer. So 53% said their biggest challenge is getting paid on time and chasing overdue invoices. I don't think that's a surprise to you either, George.
No, I mean, it's something we're seeing a lot more of given the current climate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Payments are being deferred by debtors as often as possible as they try to get paid themselves.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so people have identified what the challenges are in their business, and if they wanted to implement the best possible or ideal credit management process, what would that process look like, George?
Well, there's a lot on this slide, so bear with me as I work through it, but I'll try and keep it really relevant to the discussion today. Just regarding onboarding, I mean, a lot of you guys said your primary focus is to get paid. One thing with onboarding is that it's an upfront process that if you do incorrectly, when you rely upon those documents, those legal documents, your T's and C's, your credit apps in the future, they're often not available, or they're incorrect, or they can be invalidated if by a insolvency practitioner in many cases, if that's the case. So making sure, as I said, that your T's and C's are signed, accurate, that the appropriate ABN relevant to who you're dealing with is noted on the form. Making sure that it's signed and filed is really important. Best practice from a customer perspective is that it's quick and easy, it's mobile orientated, they can sign it via an e-signature, and then it goes into a digital portal so that you never lose it moving forward. So yeah, really
important, isn't it? Like, as a business owner, you're maybe sitting in the back of the cafe or in the kitchen trying to push through applications and get the admin done. You don't want to have to find time to go into a laptop or into your office when you can squeeze in 10 minutes of your day and just getting this done.
I think the mobile part is becoming more and more critical. People are, fairly addicted to their devices these days, and they're starting to transition their workspace onto those devices. A lot of customers are on the road. They might be at a job site, all those usual things, and they don't want to be overburdened by having to manually complete documentation. So a system that they can do on their phone, it finds and validates majority of the information related to their business and directors, and is quick and simple to use, is viewed very favourably. So Agnes, the next thing is, checking your credit history. Doing a credit check in itself is important, but best practice is to obviously integrate that with your onboarding process. But customers really do want flexibility when it comes to looking more broadly into the relationships that business has. So many businesses have cross directorships, so other businesses operating under those directors, which may have adverse information against them. So the ability to quickly check those and review them is important. And customers have told us so many times that that's something they love about our system. You can jump into the credit report and look across directorships and make a broader assessment in a really cost-effective and fast manner. Other things you can do, you can automate your online decisioning if you have high volumes, or if you feel inexperienced and need some help around whether you should trade with someone. You can set up recommendations based on criteria such as a risk score, age of the business, industry, and how much credit they want. So there's a lot of things there that can help you as you progress through your development of your credit management process. PPSR, I think PPSR is really critical, a really critical tool for businesses, provided they're in certain industries. So long-term hire, transport, logistics, wholesale trade, these things if you're operating in one of these industries, you should really be evaluating and reviewing how and if you use the PPSR. We can't help you with that specifically. We work with partners who we can refer you to if that's of interest, and they can also assist you by reviewing your contract more broadly. But whilst the PPSR isn't a fail-safe, it does make you a secured creditor and will give you priority if there is an insolvency event. I think one thing that people don't understand when we talk about PPSR is that unless you register it within 20 days of having that signed credit application returned to you, you have to wait 6 months for it to be valid. So it's really important that you integrate that in with your onboarding process and do it as soon as possible so that you're protected and don't have to wait, because there's absolutely no point post-implementation, post-loss, trying to get that done. But if you have any questions around that, we do have people on staff who can assist you there. And as I said, we can refer you to some of our partners in that space. Monitoring, all I can really say about monitoring is use it. Don't assume that because you've had great relationships with businesses or customers that they will last forever. Things do change, and onto that next point, you can implement that into your process. So if things do change, such as they have a bad payment rating or their risk score declines, you might decide that automatically justifies you changing their credit terms to a shorter period or reducing the amount that you offer. It's just about managing effectively rather than waiting for something to happen before you take action. So monitoring is critically important. It's there to help you make decisions quickly and effectively. Ensuring timely payments. This is something that you guys all raised today, or 53% of you. Essentially what we're talking about here is automating your collections process. So we do that via an integration with your CRM, whether that's an online 0-mile QuickBooks customer or via other means for your standalone CRMs. But what that effectively allows you to do is to communicate in a timely and efficient manner with your debtors as and when they fall overdue, and it can be formed in many ways. So you can have SMS, you can have email, and most importantly, I say you can have a targeted phone call. So when I say a targeted phone call, the systems can actually tell you when in that workflow to make a call, given that they've been communicated with via SMS or email in the past. So it's about saying, hey, we've tried twice through different mediums. Now's the time to pick up the phone and have that more pointed conversation. I think with collections, one thing that's not spoken about enough with automated systems is that they can be personalized. You do have the ability to chop and change the content of your email or your SMS content quite easily. And that's important because people just on autopilot ignore things they feel come from a computer. And that's one of the main bits of feedback we get from reminders that come from a Xero or a MIAB system, for example. And the other piece is that they can be customized for different client types. So you will want to talk differently to large customers who make up 80% of your revenue potentially, as opposed to small customers who smaller amounts. You want to have different messages. You want to have different speeds by which you accelerate that that collections process. So you can easily set those up in an automated way. I think the critical thing there, in addition, I referred to it earlier, is generally it's hard to get all the information in one place. So if you're sending people emails, if you are calling them, where are you taking those notes? If you've got multiple collections, people that do collections, like outbound correspondence often sits in multiple outbound Outlook files. And again, when customers call you and say, I've made a payment, can you note that down? It goes somewhere, and then ultimately they're having to have the same conversation multiple times, which is
having that. Sorry, I was just going to say, having that centralized system and having a record of everything easily accessible means that it's a lot easier for someone to make default listings and have proof that they have done the right things and taken steps to be able to make that default listing. I think a lot of customers sometimes forget that they have to send the two reminders before they can list a default.
Yeah, and I think if you're calling, if a debtor's calling a business and saying, hey, I think I paid this, I spoke to this person yesterday, and then you have no record of that conversation, and you have to go back, you have to call them back and go sifting through multiple systems and talking to multiple people in order to get back to them. It is a huge impost on time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the final thing is, and I should have mentioned it earlier, but if the business lead or the finance manager says, hey, where are we up to with these bad debts? It's extremely hard for you to give them a position quickly. Because you don't have any, you have to reconcile multiple systems to get to that point. So the ability to report centrally around overdues in an effective and accurate way is also critical.
Yeah.
Just finishing off there around defaults, Agnes, because you mentioned those. I think with defaults, yes, they do give you the opportunity to put a black mark against a business's credit file. But what I like to say to customers is that the best default is one that's never listed. Because the way that defaults work is that you're essentially saying, if you don't pay us, we will put this mark against your file. And your primary role there is to incentivize them to prioritize payment to you, based on not wanting that information to be shared across everyone else in the bureau. So using defaults is extremely beneficial if you've reached that point, but more beneficial in terms of making sure that customers prioritize paying you.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that, and I think it makes it even more important to look at what defaults exist on a customer's credit report, because if they have a default in there, then that means you've gone through all these steps and lengths to try and get paid, and they're not paying you, and that's a serious credit infringement. It's a massive thing. So if there is at least one default, you want to make sure that you're either putting in place additional steps to make sure that that customer is paying you on time, and that might just mean paying for goods in advance or on delivery and not providing them with credit terms, which is sometimes totally fine.
Yeah, and jumping around, getting back to the monitoring piece, if you do receive an alert that your customer has defaulted, it's a great opportunity to pick up the phone and say, hey, I know it's only a few $100 you didn't pay this business, but I'm concerned. So can you please explain it to me? And in the interim, I'm going to put you on COD or whatever it is that you feel is appropriate for that given situation. So yeah, defaults are a multi-pronged tool. They're an alert for you to act on, and they're also a tool for you to use to help ensure payment.
Awesome. Okay, so that is a long, very comprehensive process that you've outlined there, and that's great. It is probably overwhelming for someone who is trying to overhaul their processes in one go. So we like to tell our customers to start small, do one thing at a time, get it right, and then move on to the next. So if the customer came to you and said, I want to improve how we do credit management, George, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them to get started?
Right, good question. So a couple of things there. The good news is you can start anywhere, like you say. I think it's very individual to different businesses. So potentially ask yourself a few questions. You know, what is my biggest concern right now? So for most of you, that is getting paid and making sure that people are fulfilling their obligations to you. That takes, getting paid is quite a broad statement. You know, it could mean that you're not getting paid because the documentation they signed when you started with them is not complete, so they're pushing back on that. Or it could mean that you're not asking them for payment, or not asking them for payment in an efficient way. So perhaps ask a couple of questions around what you currently do and where your need is. So, you know, do you have overdues? You know, if you have overdues of over 40% or 60-day plus overdues exceeding 10%, then you probably have a direct collections problem, which you can look at. As I said, are you accepting losses because your credit applications are incomplete? Again, quite often that can happen years down the track from when you actually engaged with that customer. And I think businesses really struggle to understand that keeping that documentation and having a robust process up front is really critical. A lot of businesses will have small losses, you know, maybe 5, 10K, and they'll just walk away from them because it's too hard to chase up given what they have at their disposal in terms of signed documentation. Yeah, you can wear those losses. They probably won't send you under, but they do add up. 5, 10K a few times a year is significant, and it's money that you'd prefer to have. Some other questions which are more kind of process orientated. Have customers or staff internally raised concerns around the convoluted process that you put them through? Do you have to manage multiple systems? Is it complicated? Do people get frustrated with it? You know, these type of things are not directly related to getting paid. They're more around the processes that you have and the experience you're giving your staff and your customers. When these processes get extremely difficult to manage, businesses often look to recruit more help or more staff, which is obviously expensive. A lot of people are just simply concerned at the moment that the economy is on, you know, in uncertain times, and there's nothing wrong with that. Your business may be going swimmingly well, no bad debts, no issues with customers, but just want to start and understand that potentially things change and be alerted to those changes. So I would just like to say we understand that credit management is an operational cost to a business, but it is also something that businesses should look to invest in to ensure that they do get paid and protect cash flow at all costs. Agnes, just to finish, if you don't, oh sorry, you go. I just want to say that you know, it really is important for you to think about what your specific needs are. CreditorWatch, we do have, you know, 50 sales and account management people on the ground. So we are always available to have a conversation. These people are heavily supported, so they have a product specialist team who can help you get into the bones of onboarding or monitoring or collections, so you can have a really individual conversation. And we've also got some great Australian-based support and product implementation teams. So if you are unsure of where to start, I do suggest reaching out and having a conversation, because it might be, you know, related to your budgets or your timelines, that they can, you know, suggest something that fits for you. So yeah, it really is an individual conversations based on your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of our customers, their focus is on creating efficiencies or improving efficiency within their business, right? And we have a lot of automation tools that can help them reduce cost in that way. So definitely something to think about, but definitely talk to George or his team to just, yeah, go through an exploration, go through what your challenges are and see what can be done and pick out which one to solve first. You know, we've talked a lot about managing risk throughout the customer relationship and all the different steps that a business should take to manage their risk, minimize their risk, get paid ultimately. As you also touched on before, George, credit risk is an operational cost. It's not generating revenue for the business, but they're the ones who ensure that the revenue that does go into the bank. The salespeople and the customer-facing teams are putting in so much effort to try and get the leads in, close the deals, and get the customer through. If you're not getting paid by the customer, then that effort, a lot of that effort goes to waste. So it is really important, and it is definitely worth putting the investment into it. Bit of a product plug here at CreditorWatch. We do have solutions that help businesses, particularly trade credit providers, manage risk throughout the customer relationship. As we mentioned before, we've got onboarding solutions, account management solutions, and all the way through to collections or accounts receivables. George, you've talked about those solutions previously, but you know, do you have anything else to add to that, or any last words before we close off the webinar today?
I just think like starting on this process can be simple. You don't have to look at all those products that I can see about 10 listed and think, oh, and feel overwhelmed that you have to do everything all at once. It really depends on, as I said, what your challenge is that you're trying to solve, and whether you want to start on that journey of improving your processes more broadly, because we would suggest that it's better to do something and do it well rather than trying to improve your whole process in a very short amount of time and end up not doing it properly. So as I said, the best thing to do if you're unsure is reach out and have a conversation and allow some guidance and some help.
Yeah, and even small changes will make a significant difference. So definitely worth looking into it, definitely worth doing something about it. It doesn't have to be significant, doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. Then I guess the message is just start somewhere small. Okay, we don't have any other questions coming through. We've been addressing quite a few as they came through. If you want help from George or his team on improving your credit management process, feel free to let us know and we'll contact you after the webinar. We will be sending out a copy of the slides for your reference today, and you can rewatch the webinar and share it with your team as well. So thank you everyone for joining today. We really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. And if you have any questions, please do reach out. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Agnes.
Thanks, George. Bye.